Just off the Bruce Highway in North Rockhampton, there is a long strip of green that feels almost impossible from the air. On one side you have traffic, shopping centres, roofs, and the steady movement of the city. On the other side, the trees pull together into shade, paths disappear into the gardens, and Kershaw Gardens starts to feel less like a roadside park and more like Rockhampton's quiet backyard. From above, that contrast is what stands out first. The city is right there, but the garden runs for about a kilometre through the middle of it, following the line of the highway and sitting close to Morse Creek. You can see why people describe it as a subtropical oasis. It is not hidden far away in the hills. It is tucked into everyday Rockhampton, which somehow makes it feel even better. The story underneath this place is not just a simple garden story either. Kershaw Gardens was built on land that had once been the city's main landfill. That is the part you would never guess if you were only looking at the canopy, the open lawns, and the walking tracks today. In the 1970s, Rockhampton City Council began turning that old dump site into something completely different. Work started in 1976, and it took more than a decade before the gardens were officially opened in 1988, during Australia's Bicentenary year. That is a pretty remarkable transformation when you think about it. A city takes land that had carried its rubbish, its mess, and all the things people wanted out of sight, and turns it into a public garden. Not a token patch of grass, either. A full parkland with native planting, rainforest-style walks, wetlands, playgrounds, picnic spaces, and one of the most recognizable artificial waterfalls in Rockhampton. It is the kind of place that tells you a city can rewrite a corner of itself if it is willing to stay with the job long enough. The name Kershaw honors Cliff Kershaw, Rockhampton's former chief health inspector. That detail matters because the gardens are not named after a marketing idea or a suburb brand. They carry the name of someone connected to the civic work behind making Rockhampton cleaner, safer, and more livable. In that sense, the name fits the site. This was always about public health in the broader sense, taking damaged ground and giving it back to people as shade, play, walking space, and relief from the heat. As the drone moves along the treetops, you can see how the garden works in layers. There are open areas where families can spread out, narrow paths that slip into denser planting, and pockets of water and shade that change the feeling of the place completely. From the ground, you might notice the playgrounds first. From the air, the strongest impression is the way Kershaw Gardens softens the hard edges of North Rockhampton. It creates a green corridor through a busy part of town. The gardens are also a reminder of how much central Queensland has had to rebuild after weather events. In February 2015, severe tropical cyclone Marcia crossed the coast north of Yeppoon and brought serious damage through the region, including Rockhampton. Kershaw Gardens was hit hard. Trees came down, the old landfill underneath was exposed in places, and the park had to close while the site was made safe and rebuilt. That closure lasted years. For locals, that was not just losing a park. It was losing a familiar weekend place, a shortcut through greenery, a playground, a walking route, and a piece of Rockhampton identity. The reopening in August 2018 was more than a ribbon cutting. It was the city getting one of its gathering places back. The Queensland government described it at the time as Rockhampton's big backyard reopening after 3 years, and that phrase really does suit it. The redevelopment brought the gardens back with a stronger family focus. Wyatt's Wonder Web became one of the headline features, a tall climbing structure named in honour of Tom Wyatt, whose gardening and civic work is tied into the story of the place. There are water play areas, walking tracks, lawns, shaded shelters, and the kind of paths that make you slow down without really deciding to. You come here to let the kids burn energy, to walk the dog, to stretch your legs on a road trip, or just to sit under a tree and let the city noise fade a little. From this flight, the garden looks almost like a breathing space between the built parts of Rockhampton. You can see houses and roads around it, but the canopy holds its own. The late light helps too. It catches the tops of the trees and leaves the lower paths in shadow, which gives the whole place a calmer, more cinematic feel. It is not dramatic in the mountain and gorge sense. It is gentler than that. It is everyday beautiful. There is something very Queensland about a place like this. The scale is relaxed. The roads are close. The heat is part of the story. The good spots are often the ones that look ordinary from the edge until you step inside them. Kershaw Gardens is like that. Drive past too quickly and you might just see trees and signs. Spend a bit of time here and you realize it is one of those public places that carries a lot of small memories for a lot of people. You can imagine how many Rockhampton families have used these lawns over the years. Birthday parties, school holiday mornings, first bike rides, quick stops on the way through town, weekend walks after the worst of the sun has dropped. That is the quiet power of a civic garden. It does not need to announce itself every day. It just keeps being there, and over time, it becomes part of the way people understand home. The old landfill story gives the view a second layer. When you are flying above the trees, it is easy to focus only on the surface. But this landscape has a before and after. It has the old use, the long conversion, the damage from Marcia, the closure, the cleanup, and the reopening. Every green section you see here sits on top of that history. The beauty is real, but it is not accidental. It is built, repaired, and maintained. That is why this place is worth seeing from the air. The drone shows the whole idea at once: the city, the highway, the creek line, the canopy, the open lawns, and the way the gardens sit as a long green pause through Rockhampton. It gives you the pattern that is harder to feel from ground level. Kershaw Gardens is not just a park beside a road. It is a piece of reclaimed city land that has become one of Rockhampton's most recognizable public spaces. And as the light drops over the rooftops and the trees settle into shadow, the garden takes on that little bit of evening magic. Nothing forced. Nothing overdone. Just a city park doing what good city parks do: giving people room to breathe, giving kids somewhere to climb, giving walkers a path, and giving Rockhampton a green heart in a place that once held something very different. So this flight is really a look at transformation. From landfill to garden. From cyclone damage to reopening. From a strip beside the highway to a place locals call their own. Kershaw Gardens might sit in the middle of town, but from above, it feels like one of Rockhampton's better ideas made visible. Take the rough ground, plant it, care for it, and turn it into somewhere people actually want to be. One of the nicest things about viewing Kershaw Gardens from this height is that the park's shape starts to make sense. It is not a square formal garden, and it is not a wild reserve either. It is a long civic landscape, stitched between roads, creek edges, playground zones, and pockets of planting. The paths do the same thing the drone is doing here. They guide you from one mood to another. Open grass, then trees. A glimpse of traffic, then shade. A playground, then a quieter section where the planting takes over. That kind of design can be easy to underestimate because it feels casual. But casual public spaces are often the hardest ones to get right. They have to work for toddlers, parents, older walkers, people stopping on a long drive, dog owners, and locals who just want somewhere that does not ask anything from them. Kershaw Gardens has become that sort of flexible place for Rockhampton. It is big enough to absorb people without feeling crowded, and familiar enough that locals do not have to make an event out of visiting it. The waterfall is part of the identity too. It is man-made, and everyone knows it is man-made, but that does not make it meaningless. In a hot inland city, water features become landmarks. They give people a place to meet, a place to photograph, and a visual center to remember. When the gardens were damaged by Marcia and the waterfall had to be switched off, bringing it back became a small but important sign that the recovery was underway. There is also a practical beauty in the planting. The gardens are not trying to imitate a cold climate park. They belong to central Queensland. The trees, the open sun, the dry edges, the tougher textures, and the way the landscape handles heat all feel local. From above, you can see the garden doing two jobs at once: creating a visitor attraction and cooling the city around it. In a place like Rockhampton, shade is not decoration. Shade is infrastructure. So by the time the drone pulls back and the city comes into view, Kershaw Gardens reads less like a separate attraction and more like part of Rockhampton's working fabric. It is recreation, memory, recovery, and urban repair all in one strip of green. That is probably why it has lasted in people's minds. It is not perfect because it is untouched. It matters because it has been touched, changed, damaged, rebuilt, and kept open for the next ordinary afternoon.